What we want to talk about tonight is about JJ and Tylee and where they were found in that backyard of Chad Daybell. The bodies and the evidence that have been uncovered there, crucial in this case, absolutely crucial. There's the story, there's the motive, there's the recordings, the witnesses, but there's also the forensics, which will be so necessary to prove this case. I want you to take a listen to some of the local news reports when those bodies were found in Chad's backyard.
Here's what we can see. There are multiple police officers here. There's at least one canine dog. It looks like there is an area of focus in the backyard. They have set up 3 or 4 blue canopy tents. They have taped off the backyard. And that seems to be the area of focus right now.
We're across the field from Chad Daybell's home, and we're going to zoom way in so that you can kind of see where investigators have been outside all day long. Investigators from the Rexburg Police Department, the Fremont County Sheriff's Office, as well as the FBI Evidence Response Team. Now, Rexburg Police did say they're out here serving the search warrant in relation to the case of JJ and Tylee, the kids missing since September, and they confirm they have found human remains on this property.
Shortly after the remains were discovered, Chad Daybell was taken into custody and booked into the Fremont County Jail.
We noticed they were having a few bonfires that were kind of out of the ordinary. So they had a big bonfire last fall, and they had 2 or 3 big bonfires this spring.
When I returned to that area, they had already dug down and located what appeared to be a mass of burnt flesh and charred bone. The amount of duct tape that was covering the body.
Okay. Where was that duct tape located?
On the head, arms, and feet.
Gruesome discovery. I mean, could you imagine she's found in a pet cemetery, she's burned, and then her brother JJ is buried not far away from where his sister is found. Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent, tonight has the latest now in this case because prosecutors want to do some testing of some evidence. Let's take a listen.
Less than 6 months before Chad and Lori Daybell's death penalty trial, the prosecutors are fighting for more testing of DNA. The clincher is that this testing would consume the entire sample of evidence and not leaving enough for the defense to have its own experts independently test those items for DNA. And the items at issue may send chills down your spine. In the motion, prosecutors are asking the judge to allow them to test the following items: hairs on duct tape found inside this body bag used to transport the remains of JJ Vallow, ridge detail or fingerprints on the adhesive side of tape associated with JJ's body, swabs of that tape, small dark spots on the handles of a shovel and pickaxe recovered from a garage or barn, swabs from fingernails from JJ's right hand obtained during his autopsy. Now, this is the second time the prosecution has made this request from the judge. Prosecutors originally requested consumptive testing in April 2021 before the couple was indicted for murder and Lori's case was put on hold due to her competency. At the time, their attorneys did object on several grounds and will likely again object this time, asking the judge to not allow any testing on remaining DNA samples until the defense can obtain half of all the samples for their own testing and to allow the defendant's own DNA expert to go directly to any lab to document the process. Lori and Chad, of course, face multiple counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder for the deaths of Lori's children, Tylee and JJ, and Chad Daybell's first wife, Tammy Daybell. Up next, the parties will likely schedule hearings to take up this matter and other pending motions from the defendants before their death penalty trial scheduled for January 2023. Reporting for Court TV, I'm Chanley Painter.
So what is this testing like? How important is it? What will it reveal? What are some of the limitations on what you can find out? I need some experts tonight. Got two incredible ones. Joining me tonight in Jacksonville, Alabama, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, former senior investigator for the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office, and of course, the host of the Body Bags podcast, Joseph Scott Morgan. And joining us in Oceanside, New York, Professor Emeritus of Forensic Science at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, Dr. Lawrence Kobylinski. Great to have you both here. Thank you so much. I want to start. Let's take a look. I just want to take a look at the picture of the backyard of Chad Daybell, just to remind folks kind of what it's like. And my first question is going to be some of the challenges when you are getting the evidence from an environment like this. It's a backyard, the burial site for Tylee Ryan, right next to the burn pit and pet cemetery. And then you've got JJ, her brother, who's over to the side, was not burned like Tylee was. Justice Scott Morgan, I'll begin with you. What are some of the challenges just in dealing with this environment to try to extract that forensic evidence?
Well, I think that the most important issue here is taking care. You have to be very, very careful because these remains are very fragile, particularly Tylee's. Let's reflect back to what the detective had alluded to when he was witnessing the evidence response team at the scene. He had stated that when they had begun to excavate this burned area, there were fragmented remains in there, and that's really all that they could appreciate. They had to do extensive testing in order to verify the ID of Tylee. And so that would mean that and of course she was subjected to intense flame. That would mean that it would have taken a considerable amount of time to render down those remains to that point. So if you're looking for evidence of injury, that's going to be very difficult to assess. And also, I hate to say it, Ben, but this term dismemberment has come up. And so that would be a matter of examining particularly the leading edges of the bony fragments, because they're getting that from somewhere, I don't know where, as opposed to, say, heat fractures that would splinter the bone or the bones being snapped traumatically. When you're talking about dismemberment, you're talking about tool marks. And so it's a very fragile environment where Tylee's case is concerned.
All right, Dr. Lawrence Kobylinski, let's get to what the prosecution wants to do here first. And one of the first things that we heard about, hairs on duct tape inside a body bag used to transport the remains of J.J. Vallow. What are the challenges? What are you looking for? And what type of testing are you doing? And what kind of results will it reveal?
Well, hair analysis is not always the best source of information. Initially, it is looked at microscopically, and you're always trying to do a comparison between a known and an unknown, an exemplar and an evidentiary specimen. And you're trying to compare the morphological features, the structures that you can see under the microscope. However, you can also do DNA analysis. If there is a root, you can do the normal, what is called autosomal STR analysis. And if there isn't a root, you can look at the shaft of the hair and do mitochondrial analysis, mitochondrial DNA analysis. So hair can be very informative. Of course, duct tape is used in a lot of crimes. I mean, people get a piece of duct tape and they do all kinds of things. They tie people up, they cover their mouths, all kinds of terrible things duct tape can be used for a lot. And so you can also use duct tape forensically, because often there are fingerprints on the adhesive portion or even on the reverse portion of the duct tape. And other trace evidence tends to stick to duct tape, fibers from the person committing the crime. You know, the whole idea here is to determine the identity of the deceased, to determine what caused the death, if that's possible, in an autopsy, and also, of course, to link the person who committed the act to the victim. So that's really what we're after. And hair is one way of doing it. It's really not the best, but sometimes it can be very informative. People lose hair all the time. Scalp hairs, maybe 100, 125 hairs every day are lost. Of course, from somebody like me, it's probably double or triple that amount. But in all seriousness, hair is a very common piece of evidence from a crime scene. And again, fingerprints on adhesive tape, very common. You do see that a lot. Sometimes the fingerprints are not useful, but sometimes they are. So there's a lot here when you say hairs on duct tape. That's a lot of information that could glean the data that we need.
Joseph Scott Morgan, your podcast is called Body Bags. They're talking here about hairs on duct tape inside a body bag. Anything else that you'd be looking for?
Well, yeah, I mean, any kind of trace evidence that might be a tie back. I'm thinking about Tylee again. My mind always goes back to her, and I'm thinking about accelerant examination relative to anything that was left behind in order to, kind of urge on this fire. Because this is not something, again, that you just simply pour a gallon of gasoline, strike a match, and walk away. This requires tending, Ben, over a protracted period of time. If the remains are as rendered down as they are saying they are, this would require them to constantly be stoking the fire. And so I know that Lawrence will probably agree with this, and our kind of the godfather of our practice in forensics, Lacard, every contact leaves a trace. So every time they're placing their hands on these remains and anything of evidentiary value, we talked about these tools, or you guys, Chanley did, every time something is touched, anytime something is manipulated, there's a chance that there will be recoverable evidence in these cases. And of course, when you begin to talk about JJ's remains, that opens up a completely different world. We were able to kind of get a peek into the way he was dressed, his pajamas. They talked about the socks that he had on and this bag that was covering his head. And one of the most striking things relative to him is, and you could really sense it from the detective, was the amount of duct tape that was used to bind him. And we don't really know about the binding specifically, but the fact, again, the more you use, the higher the probability is that you're going to contaminate that. And if they were able to protect these items at the scene and get them back to the lab in their pristine state, that is, in the state in which they were recovered, the higher the probability is that they can harvest evidence off of it.
And they're going to need evidence. This case is going to be an incredible battle inside that courtroom.
Yeah.
And you've got other people involved in addition to the Doomsday couple.